No, it's all right. So welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting. We're going to call it to order at 7:01 p.m. So everybody has an agenda? Okay. So the first thing on the agenda actually is junk vehicles, but we're going to table that for now because we're waiting to get a legal opinion from the city attorney on the existing code that we have. So we do have existing code that addresses junk vehicles on private property and towing those. And the question is, there's been a state law a new state law enacted about nuisance towing. I don't feel that that applies to the code, but we're getting an opinion on that to see if part of the code we have now is out of date and we need to make updates to it. So we're kind of gonna have to wait on that.
Okay. What kind of time frame does Gary have on that? Did he say?
I thought we'd have an answer by now, but I think, I got an email late today that they thought that it will be, early next week. We should have an answer.
Well, hopefully we're good because, I mean, as I read, of course, I'm no attorney.
Yes.
But yeah, as I read the code, it looks pretty well black and white.
Pretty thorough?
Yeah. I mean, there's a process, there's,
Sorry.
Our folks at home have a hard time because our
Sorry.
IT's still not
Okay.
completely hooked up. It's an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
who's in charge of that?
Did we just hire somebody to do that? I don't know. Okay. So, thank you for looking at that. My feeling too is that the current code, is pretty thorough, has a process where you can ticket, cite, send a certified letter, and within so many days, that vehicle can be towed. And these are, anybody watching out there in Facebook land, these are vehicles that are inoperable, so no wheels, no windows, no engine.
The famous truck at the base of Mason City
Yes,
Hill.
exactly. Cars that also no license plates, have not been registered for
Right.
years. You can have a vehicle, like if you're gonna restore a vehicle, whatever, but it needs to be enclosed according to code in like a garage, in a shelter. You can't just have it like up on blocks in your backyard.
Definitely some of the blight we want to get rid of.
Yes.
So hopefully that stands up. That looks pretty strong to me. But
Yeah,
once again, I'm a car guy, not an attorney, so.
yeah. I thought it was pretty thorough too. So we'll wait till we get the complete legal opinion from the city attorney before we see if we have to make any changes to that or if it's good as it is. The second thing I want to kind of revisit that we talked about briefly is business registrations. And this is something that the city auditor actually has brought up, just that they have no idea what businesses are operating in town, that are still open, especially during COVID. We don't know like what's there. We have a business regulation code. It's Title 11 in the code that has a lot of language in it about certain types of business registering. So things like taxi cab companies, contractors, alarm companies, day peddlers, that kind of thing. But nothing just for like a routine, retail establishment.
So is the suggestion that every business needs to be registered to be able to do business in town?
Well, so that's kind of the question. And I had a conversation with the auditor. I don't want to put undue burdens on our businesses, because we want business in town. We want to be I want to be business friendly.
For sure.
And promote that. So I think the question is this something that we ask them to do, but there's no fee attached to it? If they're operating a business in town, you should be paying income tax, and I think that's one of the questions that the auditor's office has, like they don't know who should be paying income tax, or who is, so I don't know. I guess I'd like to hear what you guys think about the idea of business registrations.
I think most cities have them, don't they?
Actually, surprisingly, I did some benchmarking and I looked and I couldn't find any that do. Like Athens doesn't have like a regular business registration. Logan doesn't. I looked at Circleville. I looked at Lancaster.
Maybe it's just too hard to keep up with, coming and going.
Yeah, so they have things like contractor registrations, right? So, people, and that's clearly defined in the code, so, you know, people that would be doing drywall, HVAC type work,
But we don't regulate any of these businesses, so this is just more about having them on a list, it sounds like?
Well, I believe, well, it's twofold, you know, so who is here, because we just don't know what's
Sure.
here or what's not. I mean, I don't know if there's t-shirt manufacturing in basements, or if there's, car manufacturing in garages, you know, we just don't know what we have and what we don't have, so makes it a challenge to know what should be paid, if that makes any sense, versus, what's not being paid. And then also, I know one of the, I think it was Carla, your idea to have a master listing of businesses in town that some folks could go to find, if I recall, your example was grass cutting, and, we just don't have that either. So, you know, I would guess it would be a significant amount of workload to register these businesses, just like the rentals. And, you know, the fee basically would just cover the cost of doing it. However, I don't think I answered your question. I just kind of babbled on about it.
I'm getting your general train of thought, so
Yes.
please continue.
So the biggest thing is accountability. We have no way for accountability. So,
I completely understand the, I guess, concept and theory behind it. My biggest thing is, like, when I read the code that exists now, there's a lot of things in there that require registrations, that I'm not sure we're enforcing. And so that's kind of my other, I guess, hang up about, like, creating something else, is if we're not enforcing what we already have, does this whole section of code potentially need reworked and not just add something else into it?
the entire code definitely needs reworked. Just like I believe it was, I think it was you I had started the discussion about the trash can code.
Yes,
You know, it's clearly not applicable to Nelsonville as written, you know. Should we have a trash can ordinance? Absolutely. However, what we have now is built for a new subdivision, cookie cutter, Pickerington type, you know, place. So, I'm not sure which ones you're talking about that we're not necessarily enforcing. I do know that we make a very strong effort to get the contractors to pay up. Thanks to R&R Pipeline, they've kept us afloat through COVID in many ways, which is very helpful. And, but they won't be here next year. so.
right. I mean, so there's a code for, like, taxi cabs registration. There's a code for alarm companies.
So the taxi cab, that's interesting as well. I remember my time in Hawaii, taxi cabs are different than Ubers. And, I don't even know that we have a taxi cab company in the county, do we?
Oh, yeah, Green
Athens,
Cab,
yes.
there's
Yeah.
2 or 3 in Athens, and I see them in town,
Yeah, sometimes.
yeah. And there was a local person driving around with, like, a sign taped to their window,
I'm sure it's licensed and bonded.
taxi, yeah.
I feel
Yeah, exactly. So, I agree, right, but it's taxi cabs, but it doesn't address, like, Uber and Lyft.
Right.
Which people could be doing, and I know Uber and Lyft exists in Athens, or did, you know, pre-COVID. I don't know if anybody's Ubering and Lyfting anymore.
Oh, I'm sure there's some.
On Court Street, I'm sure they are, but, you know, that's not in our code, right? So, like, these kind of things need updated.
I would say a complete scrub of all the code, which,
Mhm.
you know, we had a very rough draft price provided to us of $25K. You know, I don't know that that's the right answer or not, you know, maybe it's just pick some and start chopping away at them and get done what we get done, you know. I think that this business registration, it's definitely one of the bigger ones that, you know, is in our face right now, if you will. Of course, the trash cans, you know, that's, if y'all remember Trash Can Gate 2020, pre-COVID.
Yes.
There are several in that category that, I think could be much better written to apply to Nelsonville. I guess I'll leave it at that.
No,
Would there be a way to cross-reference, like, business licenses, things like that to the state that would give us a list?
So Taylor would have to answer that, but I believe we don't have a way to access that. One of the things that was going with Rita, I believe that was prior to you two, was an agency that does have access to that.
Looks like you just read it.
It's the Regional Income Tax Authority.
Okay, great, thanks for
So
making me look silly, I
It's-
appreciate it.
Yeah, I used to have to pay Rita, so when I lived in Cleveland, you know, Rita is who kind of manages all, so like, you know, I lived in, let's say, I lived in Shaker Heights, but I worked in Cleveland,
Right,
so I got so much credit, similar to what we do now here, but like, they kind of manage all that.
sure.
Yeah, I paid in Reynoldsburg.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there's a lot of taxes getting collected up there. Anywho, I know they have access to cross-reference and see all that stuff, so, you know, it's a big problem from different angles over there. So what businesses are doing business in town, what employees are collecting money here in town, also, nothing to do with this particular one, but what employees are working out of town, but not paying their taxes. We have no way of knowing unless they self-identify. Well, we didn't. Taylor has some other ways of getting a hold of some information, but it's not as smooth as, say, Rita was. And I'm not trying to promote Rita. In fact, I think with COVID, it's in hot water, especially with some sort of thing changing Gary mentioned up in the State House. But whatever their access is really what we need.
Yeah, and I just had a conversation today, so like with Taylor about this, cause it seems like that information flows kind of one way to the state, but it doesn't come back down to us, and I think because there's privacy questions about sharing some of that information maybe. But I mean, I know like when I first started working at Ohio University, they did not take out my Nelsonville city taxes. They only took out Athens. And so I had to do that on my own. Now they do. Now they do both. But, so I agree with what Scott's saying there too, right? So there's a lot of people who live here that aren't paying, you know, income tax
Do they all get water at their house?
to the city.
Well, they do, but how do you know, especially in rentals where the landlord, the water's in their name?
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's just so many, and to be perfectly fair to people, because hell, I didn't know myself, you know, I didn't know I had to pay Nelsonville tax when I was paying all that tax in Columbus. And, you know, it's just not a thing that come to mind, and I imagine there's other people out there too that probably pay CPAs, don't know anything about taxes, and just say, here, go do, and, you know, they forget about it. That's pretty much what I do as well. So, I don't wanna accuse anybody of being dishonest per se, but, I think it's a problem across the board, because we've had people tell us that they've had a hard time getting their, you know, H&R Block, if you will, HR Block or whatever they are, you know, to pay Nelsonville, so.
Surely we can't be the only town having this issue. Is anybody else in the same?
So, it'd be definitely much better fitted for Taylor to answer, but other towns.
Where did
do-
you go anyway?
We went home.
Jeez.
Other towns, well, the best of my knowledge is to his Rita pitch. You know, so most towns were struggling to get by because they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And Rita was able to see that, and you're able to show a whole lot of, for example, I think Middleport was one of them. He was able to show the growth that they had immediately. Of course, they charge us fee, you know, so, and it's based off whatever you make. So, but even with the fee coming out of whatever they made, it was still more than what they were collecting before that.
Sure.
So, I think it's just, you know, taxes is clear as mud, so.
Where are they in hot, you said they were in hot water, Rita?
I believe so. So Gary mentioned something the other day, some new tax law or something that's in the hopper would, I can't speak intelligently enough about it. All I know is he said organizations like Rita could be in big trouble for survival, not like illegal activity.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is, I don't, like, I understand the need, I also though, and I told Taylor this, I'm very hesitant to impose another fee, or impose some kind of fee on businesses, especially, you know, our businesses who are paying their taxes, who are supporting our community in other ways, so, you know, supporting like the firefighters, you know, toy drive, or, you know, they support Thunder in the Valley as sponsors, or they do all those things. I don't wanna seem like we, you know, want something else from them.
I mean, you can think about maybe a voluntary registration, then if they don't, then you can penalize.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just a thought.
I guess it's something like we
I know that's more.
still need to think about, and actually, now that, as I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't know that the chamber is meeting in COVID, but I think it's something like, maybe I could reach out to the chamber about and get their thoughts on it as well.
I think we all know someone who might be on chamber.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I think.
I know
We're
Yeah.
married to one.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I just don't know that if they're
I just
meeting
saw her a
right
little
now.
while ago.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
If they're actively.
She's not watching, it's okay.
If the chamber's actively meeting right now, because of this.
Just kidding, Ange.
Let's see, is she one of the 4 people watching? No.
My phone has not lit up yet, so.
Safe for now.
Safe for now. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Waiting is the hardest part, that's what
Yeah.
Tom Petty said.
And so I guess if you guys wanna think about it, and, you know, and like I said, you know, we can have a conversation with Taylor also. I mean, he and I talked for a bit, earlier, and I think, you know, kinda talked in circles by the time we got back around to it about what makes sense and how you enforce it. Like, if, you know, if we don't know you're doing business in town, how do we make you register and tell us that you're doing business in town,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's,
Yeah, the best I can tell you from my short time here is with the construction companies, you know, from our very first meeting before they break ground, I just started harping on them, because that's what Taylor told me to do. And, you know, so, and then I pulled Taylor in, and all the construction companies, I can tell you, working in town this past summer have been paying.
okay.
But outside of that, I don't know.
Hard to tell.
Well, maybe if we made like some sort of incentive for them, like if you register, as we've been talking about lists, there would be a list, and that might bring you more business. If you're
Mhm.
on this list, people will know you're there. Some type of incentive for them to register.
Scott will come to your house and cut the grass.
Yeah.
Okay,
Everybody will see my lift in my garage and think I have a business.
yeah, yes, I've
Yes.
heard that.
You will be
That's
back.
just,
We had a oil changing business going on over there.
That's for my daughter, so she doesn't have to lay down. She's very spoiled to do her oil changes.
All
But at
right.
least she does her own oil changes, so I give her that.
Wow, Kenzie's really talented.
No, the older one, Kaylor.
I'm like, are you kidding? Is this like really happening? I don't know.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The change room breaks too.
Okay. I don't even mow my own lawn, I don't know.
Oh, my gosh.
I know how, I just don't, yeah.
Sure. Okay,
Support
whatever you
a
say.
local business, they do it.
There you go.
Okay. All right, so I think that needs to be continued and a little more exploration on. Justin, do you wanna take the next one?
Oh, well, thank you very
Okay.
much. So, I've been looking into, you know, a little bit of, as far as legalities and feasibility, as people may or may not have understood. I'm in favor of opening some of our streets up to ATVs, utility vehicles on a trial basis. And I've actually pulled the, economic report from 2019 from the Hattonville and McCoy, trail down in West Virginia. It talks about the tens of millions of dollars that it's brought to their economy, you know, taxes, you know, business to their folks. And it's funny, 17% or so, and I have to look at the report again, of those people came from Ohio. So I think we've all seen the people that, you know, cruise by us on the highway on the weekends with their ATVs on the back, heading elsewhere to spend their money. I've talked to several people in the community, and, you know, everybody so far I've spoken with has been cautiously in support, you know, just depending on what the plan is. And, you know, I've gone through the ORC, you know, in my limited capacity as a non-attorney. And I know there's a lot of questions about, you know, how it would be handled, you know, who would be eligible, you know, are we gonna have these junk dirt bikes running up and down the street, you know, things like that. And what I've found, number one, we do have the authority to do so. You know, being the local authority over our streets, we're able to allow this with some limitations. And what I propose is that we do it on a one-year trial, you know, and give it a try. If it doesn't work, hey, great, we'll throw it out. These vehicles that would be on the road, per state law, have to be registered. They do have to have a license, they have to have insurance, they have to pass an inspection by our local police before they're able to be driven on our streets. So they have to have lights, they have to have turn signals, they have to have a windshield, all these different things, and that's per state law, we can't change that. So you have to have a muffler. So I don't have to worry about, you know, folks living and, you know, the junk old Suzuki coming down the street at 90 miles an hour. The drivers have to be licensed, 16 or older, just like a vehicle. So we won't have kids out there. You know, all the regular traffic laws apply. So,
how would the registration, I understand that they have to be like registered with the state.
Yep.
But the like approval for, with our local police work, cause like if you're coming here on the weekend.
Yep.
For a weekend, how am I going to get my UTV
and I've seen.
approved? I mean, it's like, is that a hindrance to ask for that?
Not at all, and that's part of actually the state revised code.
Okay.
They actually have to have a inspection form from us. They take it to the license bureau, and that's how they can get their either temporary or permanent, you know, registration. They actually have to label it on their vehicle, so any law enforcement can see it. And they can't be on the roads if it doesn't matter what our laws are, that's the state law. So,
But
and I've seen those people actually, when I went and got my license plates renewed, they were down there doing that.
So like, what if I live in, Zanesville?
Okay.
And I have a UTV, and we come down here to the Hocking Hills or whatever for the weekend. Do I have to come ahead of time and get my vehicle approved for Nelsonville?
You, actually, no, as long as you have as long as it's already registered with the state.
Okay,
So you can drive, you know, anywhere that it's legal,
okay.
as long as you have the registration already.
Okay, so you're not saying that they have to be registered necessarily with
No.
us, it's just that they
No.
have to go through that process
They
wherever
have-
they live to get it registered
Right, they have
with
to have
the
that
state.
form,
Okay.
they have to go to the license bureau, and it checks off, hey, it's got a
Mhm.
steering mechanism, it's got brake lights, it's got tail lights, it's got a muffler,
Mhm.
you know, the tires are in good condition. It's not an extensive inspection, but it's enough of a safety inspection, we don't have junk running around out there on the roads. So there's that. Let's see, what else do I have here?
You guys mind talking into the mic, please?
I apologize.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sitting too far away. Is that any better?
Possibly.
Well,
Sam, is that better?
can you hear me now?
Blue section, row 15. Nope. All right, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's see. And we can put our own prohibitions on where we allow the vehicles. So as the plan goes forward, we can decide if we don't want them on residential streets, we just want it on, you know, Canal Street. We can do that. If we only want them to run from, you know, only in daylight hours, we can do that. All those different things, you know, as we go along, that would be,
Just curious,
something that we'd be,
how did we find that out when Mr. Miller said that we couldn't do that?
I checked the Ohio Revised Code website and read through it, so if I'm wrong, he'll tell me. But everything that I've read and all the research that I've done tells me that we can't. And we're not the only city in the state who's done it either.
Yeah.
They're-
Regulating the streets?
Exactly, the procedures are out there.
Yeah, I pulled up a couple codes today, in other cities where they have certain streets identified, like an ATV trail or whatever, you know, marked in their cities. So like, I could see that, right, so like here, like we could say Business Canal, Columbus Street,
There's no reason we couldn't mark it up like a bike or like a bike lane.
mhm.
You know, paint the little figurines on what's allowed and not allowed, and so forth. I know, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and, on both sides of the fence, the pros and the cons both, you know, and a lot of the cons, you know, if you were to ask me, I think everybody's cons should be listed out and then come up with a solution for each one of them. And a lot of these, you know, the noise, where they're allowed to drive and everything else, I think there's a lot of easy fixes for a lot of that. I mean, if you mark the streets and you set a speed limit, you could even set a max speed limit inside the city, you know. Another option to generate revenue is to sell a pass. So you could buy a pass at Go-Mart or Speedway or whatever.
Now, see, the way I read that, you weren't able to do that.
Really?
Yeah, so maybe I read it incorrectly, but I was looking for that specifically too.
I'm darn, because that's how the Wayne does it. I just assumed because the Wayne does it, that anybody could do it.
Well,
But
they're the feds, they can do what they want.
yeah, right, right.
I think I remember one thing that Mr. Hunter said, the reason we wasn't allowed to separate the streets was, say we let them go on, what was it, when you said Columbus or Washington, one or the other, but we don't let them go on the other, is the businesses on this street could say that you're, what's the word?
Preferential.
Yeah.
Yes, being preferential to one business and excluding the other from letting them go by the business. I think that was one of the things that he said.
And maybe that's, you know, maybe one of the roadblocks where you get through, maybe, say, they can only be in commercially zoned areas of town. Which, yeah, I'm not looking to open up, at least my thought, maybe, you know, people think differently. I'm not looking to open the entire town up. You know, we wanna bring business to town, so I think, you know, Canal Street would be obviously, a must. It's where our businesses are. You know, restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, you know, parts stores, all those things that are, you know.
They can always park and walk uptown,
Well, sure.
too.
Yeah, and depending on what we decide, absolutely. But, you know, that's the main thing. I don't wanna see, you know, a Polaris, you know, running up on the backside of town just because that's not what we want.
Right, and I think that has been a concern, right, like, you don't wanna just open it up and have people riding, you know, through our residential neighborhoods in particular, you know, joyriding, if you will. But you know, and I also have like conflicting thoughts about like the public square. Like, do we want them to be on Columbus and Washington, but maybe not exactly on the square? You know, I don't know.
I'd say that's probably a conversation we have, is just a
Right.
little further on down the line. Yeah, me, I would say yes, but I know and Carla, you disagree with that
Not
too.
on the square, no.
Not on the square, right? Like, that's like, I'm like, not, you know, like, but,
Spent 1.6 million to beautify the square, not on the square.
Yeah, we're trying to bring some more into it. But, yeah, and if you look at this, I'll give you guys this too, and I can show you where it's at too. Yeah.
Some Handa guy brought all that in
Really?
about 2 years back. We have a big stack of.
Okay, yeah, this one's from last year.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it was 17.5% of the people who responded to the survey came from Ohio. I'd love to keep that money here, so out of that, they're talking about $38 million worth of benefit to the area. If we can keep some of that'd really be helpful to Nelsonville. So if we can come up with a plan to do that, I would be more than happy to be hip deep in that with anyone who,
I don't think we could get anywhere as big as $38 million, but
well,
I
That'd
see
be
what you mean
nice,
now.
yeah. No,
every journey begins with that first step. I want it all.
I agree, and I am in favor of it for that reason, that, you know, in this area, what we really need to embrace is what our available asset is, which is outdoor recreation here.
Yep.
And if we continue to kind of reject that idea, as outdoor recreation continues to kind of explode around us, especially with the new Bailey Run
Bailey Trail.
Trailhead, and, you know, still looking at all the visitors that come to the Hocking Hills, then we're just gonna stop ourselves from growing.
Yep.
And I think especially now, you know, kind of harping on this new Bailey Run Trail, or Bailey's, what's it called?
Bailey's Run.
Bailey's
Yeah,
Trail.
Bailey's Trailhead.
Oh, the Bailey Trail.
Yeah, Bailey's Trail.
What'd you say?
You,
I said run.
you know, this is our opportunity to kind of, you know, get in front of this and claim some of those tourists and tourist dollars, and hopefully increase business and, visitors to our town.
Yeah, and these are the people that have money. They're spending $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 on their rig. They wanna spend their money somewhere. If there's 2 million people who go to the Hocking Hills every year, let's get some of those people in here.
Yeah, I mean, right, in their toy haulers and their
Yep.
this and their that, I mean, it's big business.
And especially now with COVID, people aren't taking vacations as much, they're getting into the outdoors. I mean, you couldn't buy, and I don't own one, you couldn't buy an ATV or a four-wheeler everybody was telling me over the summer, if you walked into a store and there were 100 there were 150 people there ready to buy. So this, I mean, it's exploded. People are really embracing it, so.
Yeah.
I think we should hop on board.
I wrote down just some things that, like, to me, like, would need to be addressed,
Mhm.
which would noise, mud. We have something in the city code right now about mud, but it's mud on highways, so I think it'd have to be
We could-
expanded to, like,
yeah, we
city
could
streets,
address
like,
that.
right? I know that's one of the things people, like, have said, like, oh, they're gonna come off maybe a trailhead and be dirty,
Sure.
and then, you know, to that town.
Car washes would be
yeah.
happy with that.
Yeah, hours, so I saw some that say like from 30 minutes before sunrise to 30 minutes before sunset.
Yeah,
I've seen others that are like, you know, 9 AM to 9 PM or 7 AM to, you know, so hours, street restrictions, age limits. I've seen some, I read a couple codes today that, you have to be 18 to drive on city streets, so that's not just 16.
And that's something we could do too. I
Yeah.
mean, 16 is the minimum, so.
Yeah.
They at least have to.
Yeah,
be
it does
licensed
have to have a
driver.
license, right? So safety precautions requiring people under 18 to wear a helmet, anybody, if it's like a side-by-side, you have to wear a seatbelt, just like you would a car.
Right.
So just, I mean, those are just
Days
some
of
of
the
the things.
week would probably be something to limit as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
Only on the weekends, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and
Saturday,
holidays.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of the, just, again, I know we're in the very preliminary brainstorming stages. Some of the solutions to a few of the things you mentioned, you know, the noise could easily be controlled with, in addition to the inspection, a speed limit. And Lord knows that, we are handing out speeding tickets left and right now. The other thing, mud, a suggestion of putting rumble strips in at the trailhead to vibrate that off. I've ridden ATVs for many years. Those tires are very large and they don't really hold the mud all that well. But even my truck tire that does, it still flies off within the first couple hundred feet. If we had dedicated lanes for ATVs, UTVs, you know, we could have a dedicated cleanup day with the street sweeper the following Monday to hit those specific areas just to stay on top of it. Those are really the big ones. As far as where to drive and not to drive, I've heard all sorts of crazy stuff, you know. Only on certain streets, you know, of course, there's no reason to have folks up in Pine Grove doing wheelies.
Right.
But on the square, you know, my personal opinion is the square should be shut down forever and just a walking path, but I might get killed for that, so I won't say it too loud.
That's a thought.
But,
Be interesting, actually.
yeah, so many folks are, again, I've heard both sides of the argument. One of the arguments is, you know, there's a stereotype of drinkers that go along with this. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we did 2 OBIs this past weekend. Neither one of them were ATVs, and we get people high all the time. Unfortunately, sometimes they run over our fire hydrants, which really sucks, but,
I
you know,
missed that one.
I did too, actually.
that was a while back. So, I don't know that that's a new problem, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Uh,
I don't think it's reason to not do it.
Right, and the biggest thing is having, you know, good order and discipline. You know, we have, our police department's extremely active, you know. If they're present and proactive, it won't take long for it to figure out. Now, I do remember one of the other cons is the state routes. So, I believe the ORC states that you can cross a state route, but you can't drive on a state route, which would create a problem for coming in 278. So then the question is, where do they come into town? Do they go to the Door Run trailhead? And if so, how do we, I believe that was the last question for Mr. Hunter, because Mr. Hunter seemed okay with what the ORC, the last time when Wanda was here and I talked to him about it. What he wasn't certain about is JLE, does that count as is that a state road or city road, or what is that?
I think
And he
it's a
never
state
got me an answer for that yet, you know?
Yeah, I don't think that's state route.
So what I read when I was doing some research on my own, though this was not Ohio, so, that a city can designate certain things like under their jurisdiction.
Yeah, we have that as well.
So, like, I was reading this one code, and that's kind of what they did, like, it was kind of like, what, so Madison Street, you know, is
Mhm.
278 or whatever. Like, you could claim that from this point to this point,
Right, from city limits.
it's
in.
city limit, so it's not considered highway there, but I mean, I don't know.
That's the way I read it as well. So once you get to state roads that aren't under our jurisdiction, we can't do anything about that.
Right, so like, outside, I don't know where the city limit, point is on 278. How far is it?
278, that one's right at the overpass for the
At the
most part.
overpass,
for the-
okay.
Yeah.
And so where's the trail, the trail is beyond that, right?
It is
Right, it's way,
Yeah.
it's, going down the big hill.
probably
you know.
another half mile up or so.
Yeah, maybe. So the most practical entrance would be Snake Hollow up by the old prison,
Mhm.
and then have them come down Fort Street. And I know Mr. Sherman loves that idea. That, to me, that's the most practical. Now, I don't, meaning when I say practical in terms of getting here the most expedient way,
Right.
you know, I'm not saying that's the way it has to be. There's plenty of options. So I'm going back from memory what Gary shared. Because Gary, I don't know what he said ahead of time. He seemed, just going from memory, when it was brought up again earlier this year, he didn't seem anti it. It was just the question about the state roads, if I recall. But I may have misunderstood him, I don't know.
I think it's something we definitely should explore further.
I guess, Carla, do you remember, so like, what some of the other, I guess, objections were?
I think you hit the main objections. They're like, you know, they don't want them on Washington, they don't want them on Fort. Bunch of us don't want them on Square. Mainly residential, the Square.
Okay.
I don't think, I mean, I don't know, just what I've heard, I've not heard a problem with Canal Street.
Mhm.
But, like I said, if you found something that says we can dictate streets, that would be great.
Yeah.
I've just, you know, from 3 years ago, it wasn't that way.
Yeah, obviously, I'll consult with Gary and make
And
sure I'm not incorrect.
As we get progressing, I
Absolutely,
mean,
yeah.
obviously not now, but I would definitely want more, like, residential input. I mean, I know it's hard right now with
Right.
COVID, but I would definitely not want to do anything without being able to hear from the public.
Absolutely.
So Bear actually just texted me that, and, you know, we have SurveyMonkey that we can certainly use and run a, social media campaign and see what folks want, you know?
I'm all for that.
Just to get it out there. I mean, I personally think that's the way to do things anyways, just to see what the general consensus is.
Of something this, you know, this is gonna change this much of how we run our town, absolutely, everybody should have their voice.
Sure.
I have to, and Justin, maybe you read this when you were reading up on, the code, the Ohio Revised Code. Because it is legal now, like, to drive a golf cart on a city street in the state, like, and, right? Like, they changed some of those rules, like, it has a windshield and safety, and seat belts and whatever. So I guess I was even wondering, like, I understand an ATV, but like a UTV,
It's the same thing.
it's, right? So like, technically, somebody could get that approved in town anyway.
Well,
Right.
I'd like to expand on that if I could. There's actually folks with fully registered UTVs and golf carts in town with turn signals and the whole
Yeah.
9 yards
Yeah,
cruising
it's
around the
legal.
streets now.
Right.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I know golf carts.
Right.
'Cause, yeah.
Yeah, as long as they have all the equipment, yeah, they can be
But
approved.
that's like one, not like 40, 50.
Yes,
something.
right, like, as a group all going to the Mexican restaurant, right?
Right.
Like, yes, I hear you, Carla. But I guess that was my other question, right? Like, how much, like, there's already some of this happening, and, you know, we're obviously not regulating that, because if you have the decked out with the windshield, with the turn signals, with this, with that, and you get it registered, you can drive it now.
I mean, it's very similar to that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the whole code talks about, so I think it's just maybe expanding it more to the ATVs as far as that goes, so, it's not a big jump,
Yeah,
so it's just a matter of where and when.
okay, so maybe that's,
So I don't know if you was listening to council at all a year and a half ago or so, but we did have another lady here that had a really good suggestion that a lot of us liked. We did didn't know how to do it. She suggested making, for a trial, a weekend event, and see how many came, how it went, how they liked it, just as a trial. I don't know if that's something that would be at all
Yeah,
possible
I think
to
that'd be interesting, wouldn't
arrange.
you say?
That would suggest, I've heard that suggestion as well,
Yeah.
you know, start out on the, what is that, Memorial Day?
Memorial Day, yeah.
Yeah, Memorial Day weekend, and see how it goes, and maybe, 4th of July, and then, you know, by 4th of July, cause, you know, the first weekend or 2 weekends, it's gonna be a false,
Mhm.
it won't be 100% evident what it is, cause, you know, how many people are gonna come just that one time. It's a year from now when people spread the word that it's gonna get,
Right, and that's one of the reasons I
Filled up.
suggested the trial, you know, of a year, but even a weekend or, you know, a couple weekends or something like that, that's definitely something I'd be interested in.
But we all liked her idea, we just didn't know actually how to move forward with it.
Yeah.
Because we didn't, you know, it's like where, when,
Sure.
who's gonna be in charge of it all, and there was just, it didn't get very far.
Sure. Pitch is gonna love us, it's gonna throw
you
something
know,
else.
I've talked to him about it, and, he's not concerned, you know, it's one of those, when you set the standards from the beginning, it's not a problem. If you lose control of it and try to bring it back in, that's when it gets a little bit busy, but
Yeah, that's all we need to get right the first time.
that's right. You set the tone from the very beginning, and you're always gonna have that one person, you know what I mean? That one person that smashes through the do house, you're always gonna have that one person, you know? That's never not going to happen, but he has no concerns to speak of, and
And I know that there's probably some people out there who are like, oh no, you know, we don't want this in the town, but again, I think the thing that we need to recognize is that this will bring visitors, business, you know, to our city, which we need. And this is happening all around us, right? There's all this outdoor recreation that's happening around us, and we really should capitalize on it.
I think some of the concerns might let up just a little when they know they're not going on the residential streets,
Yeah,
because that was a big major concern.
right.
so, we got some input. Greg Clement says, what about putting it on the ballot, see what the town decides? I mean,
What the
ballot,
survey-
Survey Monkey, you know, same, as long as it's out there for, you know, for all the results and all that good stuff. And then Nancy Baumgartner, where will they park? I don't believe it's the trucks coming in and departing from Nelsonville that I think we're really anticipating. I think it's the folks that are already on the trails, giving them a destination to go.
Yeah, so they're parking, likely where they're staying, where they're camping, at their cabin rental, at their campground, but then they go out into the Wayne, and they could know that they can, you know, do this trail and then ultimately end up in Nelsonville and have lunch at the mine or at, you know, Rocky Boot Grill. They can come in
Get
and
parts.
get something that they need
Good
at
burgers and
Kroger
groceries.
or at Fruits,
Yeah.
and or just, you know, shop on the square at some of the little shops that we have.
Yeah, I'd love to see Fruit, you know, offer free parking with purchase, if not, you know, $5 to park on their lot, especially if we shut down the square, because they got that huge lot. That'd be amazing for their business, you know? They'd sell so much, you know, bottles of water and so forth, just to get free parking and go do all that other stuff, but, and there's plenty of little lots around the square people could sell.
Yeah.
I've never been anywhere but Nelsonville that has as much free parking as it does. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really nice, but we could charge, it's okay, other people do it, all over the world.
Let's get people to town first.
They charge for bathrooms in London,
Yes, all over Europe.
it's true, and there's an attendant, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
That is nice, or there's an attendant.
It's nice.
Oh, okay.
The attendant is definitely there, but.
Okay, he's not real interested in anything more than that.
No.
Understood. Okay, well, we'll,
I mean, I think it's something that we need to think about, and maybe collectively we can come up with some ideas for a survey to put out to the community.
Probably first step is just to find, you know, put your ear to the ground and come
Yeah.
up with all the cons we can.
Yeah,
yep,
and then come up with a solution or two to every single con, and then put it on the ballot, or
Okay.
survey, or whatever.
However we're gonna do it, yeah.
But, you know, the first time I heard it, you know, I wasn't even here, nor did I have any intention of coming back here, and I was absolutely no. You know, last thing I wanna see is, you know, somebody riding down the road with their shirt off, no helmet, beer in hand, you know, doing donuts. I mean, that's what I envisioned, and I know for a fact I'm not interested in anything like that, nor are the people that I've talked to.
The people that are coming to town to do this aren't the, you know, prototypical backwoods hillbilly that are gonna come down, you know, with a can of Old Bill. Heck no, these are the guys with $20,000 rigs and $50,000 trucks and $10,000 trailers. They're not looking to cause problems, they just wanna go and have a good time.
Yeah, I agree, and I think some of the objections before too was kind of the thought that you would just have a bunch of kids riding around, you know, like all over town. But I don't see that being an issue, like you said, it's people who are coming here as a destination
Right.
for their, you know, for their recreation, and knowing that they can ride a trail into town, have lunch, ride a different trail, maybe out of town, to get back to where they're going.
Yep.
I don't know how people know where they're going on these trails, but,
They're
There are
pretty well
maps.
mapped.
okay, I don't know,
There are
but,
maps.
yeah, so,
Okay, cool, we'll, work on this and, see if we can move this forward.
all right. That's all we had for tonight. Do you guys have anything else? Oh,
Camping.
Camping
and
cones.
tents.
Yeah.
Camping, yeah.
so, do you,
So I can give what background
Okay.
I know. So what we're looking for is some sort of teeth to keep folks from popping up tents in their yard and living in them. Also, how do we do that and accomplish a means for, if somebody wanted to have a campground in town, you know, what does that look like? You know, I know when Bernie came in here and gave his presentation, he talked about primitive camping, you know, on his lot, I'm assuming inside the fence, you know, which, great, all of his people will be inside a fenced-in area, you know, he's got facilities there for them, water, toilets, the whole 9 yards, you know, that's good, that's a plan, but I don't think we want people, like in Sturgis, renting out a 15 by 15 foot section of their front yard, you know, for somebody to pop a tent on for an event. So I don't know exactly what that looks like. I know the potential for basically the homeless camps and such is something that Becky desires, as more enforcement. And then also, what does it look like to do camping in town, should we become a tourist destination?
right, so I guess the question there is, you know, we have to set up, or you'd have to, I guess that might be right, you'd have to set up, like, camping can only be in campgrounds. And then how do we define what that is, and is there some kind of registration, obviously, approval for that? Because you also want to know that they have, whether it's porta potties or whatever, right, like some kind of restroom facility for people to use.
And that'd be a standard for sure.
Yes, yeah, right?
I would think a city permit with basic standards. You know, Becky's done some homework on this for a couple customers already. You know, a lot of people would wanna camp down by the river, I'm assuming. So, you know, campgrounds down there, if they move dirt or anything like that, could require a major study, depending on where it's at within the floodway versus floodplain. Electric needs to be, waterproof, you know, floodproof as they call it. Some of the, well, I guess what I'm saying is there's a whole list of rules already out there for stuff like this. If we just put it together and figure it out as a city, you know, pick and choose off that what we want. And, you know, if it's a residential area, of course, in my head, it would have to go to the BZA for approval first. And then if the BZA approved it and it met all the requirements, we had maybe a city permit, just like our rental permit, only a little bit more specific, and ensures that you have a shower facility or whatever. Because I know we have primitive camping now up at Burnings. I believe they allow tents up there.
Up here, well, I know
They're
that
up
they,
there.
they're there, I don't know that what's the, yes, they have been camping up there.
Sure.
I don't know what the process has been for that.
And I know one customer's looking at putting in spots to, expand, lodging facilities for one of their programs. And, now with Bernie wanting to bring his folks through town, I've heard some other interest of folks doing stuff on the river, which I think is great. You know, I would love to see the riverbanks filled up with, you know, people and business and everything else. I think that'd be awesome. But, what does that look like? I don't know that answer.
Right, and I'm wondering, and I don't know, again, like, does the health department have regulations about camping, like they would with a hotel or, you know, like, things that they have to get approved?
Guess it would depend on what kind of facilities you have there.
Right.
I can't imagine the health department's gonna say much about a porta potty, but if you get into showers
But
and
if
things
it's,
like that.
if it's on the river, I mean,
it
So-
might be
they
more like-
might,
Might be more
right?
like an
Might
EGA
skip
or
the
something like
porta
that.
yes, right?
So a lot of it, you know, because we're the floodplain managers, Becky and myself, and, you know, down there, to pull up a camper, is my understanding, to pull up a camper next to the river and then take it home with you, you know, because it's all self-contained, not necessarily a problem. I could be incorrect, so somebody might correct me, but that's the way I understand it so far. But if you have dump, you know, a dump for that camper, where does it dump at? Does it dump into the sewer? Does it dump into a tank that gets pumped? If it's sewer, how do we measure it? How do we, you know, charge for that? If it's, you know, if it's so they have, we had them in the desert all the time, self-contained toilet facilities, not Johnny on the spots per se, but like a trailer with a whole bunch, and they had self-contained showers and sinks and everything. And it was a tank underneath that you just came and pumped out, so it's completely
Right.
environmentally friendly, because a truck comes in and sucks it all out and takes it away, it doesn't go into the ground, you know. I would imagine stuff like that is what would be required unless there's existing infrastructure there to plumb into.
Yeah, I was just,
The many campgrounds where they have that truck that comes around and, you know, pumps everybody's camper out, you know, maybe we just don't allow them to put anything in our sewer.
Yeah, you know, there's so many ways to skin that cat, cause, I mean, as a city, we could even put in a dump station somewhere.
Absolutely.
And charge for the dump station. I mean, in Illinois, when I was out there, gas stations had dump stations, I think you paid $8.
Yep.
And you could dump your tank right there while you're getting gas, you know?
Maybe that do find $8 at a ton.
Yes, sir.
Score.
So, there's just so many possibilities.
Sure.
That, we just need, I think, to get all the rules that are available or required, put
Right.
all the required ones on the list first that we have to do, and then pick and choose the ones we like and put that on the list too.
Yep.
And then that's the standard.
Yeah, I agree, I think that the question, right, is like, where is it permitted to do? So is that only in a commercially zoned area, you know, like, so say like during Nelsonville Music Festival, I mean, we don't want, like you said, like at Sturgis, like people renting out, you know, 10 by 10 sections of their grass
Sure.
for people to camp.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know, that would make the most sense, is making sure it's in a
In
commercial
in
area.
like certain zoned
Yep.
areas, and maybe that isn't, maybe it's a new zoning, I don't know, like.
I think you would, I mean, that'd be something for the BZA, you know,
Yeah.
you just take it to them, you know, apply for your special permit.
Yep.
Or your special, and as long as that owner or whatever owns it, you know, it can stay that, but if it ever changes hands, then it's gotta go before the BZA again. I mean, just, I don't know, again, I'm just throwing out suggestions and
Right.
brainstorming with
Yeah, there needs
everyone.
to be some kind of process for it, for sure.
And we'd probably want that done by what, March or April?
You know, I would say March or April would definitely be good, or even before it gets warmer. You know, the homeless situation, right now, the police are doing, a good job at policing the river. As it gets colder, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's not as easy for the homeless to find shelter. And we already are experiencing issues with them trying to crawl in crawl spaces and, you know, stuff like get into structures versus a tent per se, or a tarp, or just, you know, camping out on the grass. have that going into spring, I think would be very helpful, and it would set the tone. And again, next year, I know, one event in particular I'm excited that's coming into town over 9/11 next year is a motorcycle rally. I don't remember if I've shared with council or not. BMW sponsors it, and they'll come in, they do, for a few weeks prior to 9/11, they'll set up a little track that they train veterans and children on the spectrum how to operate motorcycles, and then they take them out on the trails during their big long event.
Wow.
You know, and they're expecting a couple thousand, or what did he say? No, he said 400 this year is what he's expecting. They were over in New Straitsville for the past 7 years and they outgrew it, so that's why they're coming to Nelsonville. Currently, they're working with the college to use their big field out there for their event, and you know, I would love seeing that kind of stuff. I know that Chansey's already getting multiple events at Chansey Park there, where the trailhead is for the bicycles. Again, you know, Hocking College has a great venue right next to that. You know, so do the Edwards, they have a big field that they could do as well. But there's a lot of areas and venues that are starting to happen that next year, I would hope that we're a part of that growth, you know. And I'd like to be somewhat prepared for it instead of getting caught, you know, without a plan. Because again, it's harder to undo something than it is to do something right from the beginning.
Yeah, and they already, like, their website already is advertising that they're coming to Nelsonville next year, and.
Did you see this logo they made?
Yeah.
I love it.
Is this, there were like, a couple weekends ago, maybe more than a couple, you know, with COVID, I feel like they all blur together. There were like a ton of motorcycles in town.
That was just a big Harley group,
Okay.
Well, the guy I know, he's a previous police officer, and he rides with a couple of different groups, and he was a part of that one. So it wasn't necessarily this group.
Were they just doing the windy nine,
Yeah.
like that, okay.
So this group, they're actually, so BMW Magazine, I have a copy of it on my desk, but this January coming up, they're getting ready to do a full write-up, 2-page story on Nelsonville and the history of Nelsonville and advertising for their event. So that event that they do 3 of them throughout the country. The other 2 are several thousand people that attend them. This one just started out real small, and like I said, they outgrew their venue over there. So we found them a place to hang out here and grow. So, you know, who knows, that could turn into a big event.
Awesome.
I know that the plans that, you know, that's still way early, but they want to do a parade when they're here, you know, with the kids and the vets and everything else, and have the fire department involved, police department, you know, going through the town, if you will, and there's just a whole lot of stuff happening.
Beautiful. Awesome.
We need lots of stuff like that.
Yep, that's our future. Nice job.
Okay.
So if maybe you and Becky work on that and we just tweak it, or the camping thing, is that thing?
I mean, I can pass that off to Becky, sure.
I think Becky has some,
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
isn't there probably something already?
I feel like
set
Becky
up.
did have something.
She probably does. Her and I haven't talked about it a
'Cause
whole
I
lot.
think she did too.
We've talked about it a little bit in the problem, if you will, and I know she's talked to the planning commission about it, but I haven't got into the weeds, you know, with her, so I can definitely engage with Becky and have her start putting together.
Maybe she can come to our next
Yeah,
meeting or something.
yeah, yeah, we can each look into, I've tried to look, like when I'm sitting here and I can't find much in any other city on it, so I don't know.
We will be trailblazers.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are, a lot of what I'm seeing is more about, prohibitive camping, like, to deal with homeless, you know, like camping in public parks and.
Oh, you mean the one that is proposed?
No, I said that's what I'm seeing when I'm searching online for like camping ordinances that exist in other cities. That's mostly what I'm seeing is more like not allowing camping versus like setting up
How you will
how
allow
you
it.
would
Yeah.
embrace camping. And
We have to work on that too, don't we? Or did we already pass something on that,
no,
the prohibitive,
Oh,
where they're not?
I think that's part of this discussion,
Yeah.
still, from what I remember.
I think it should all be rolled into one,
What's allowed.
what's allowed, what's not allowed.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna throw up a tent for, overnight thing, great, no problem, knock yourself out, but,
If anyone sleep in the yard, great, have fun.
yeah, 28 days later, and the tent's still there,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
no
right.
problem.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, as is, and I'm pretty sure we have code on this, not living in an RV, or a travel trailer in your driveway, or,
That I believe we have on the books already.
yeah, that's what I said, I think we have some of those things on the books
Yeah, 'cause
already.
she finds those frequently, actually,
Yeah.
more frequently than I thought, but, no problem.
Okay, so, I think for our next meeting, we'll revisit kind of this business registration thing. I'm gonna follow up with the Chamber of Commerce, and kind of just maybe get their thoughts on that. Justin will let you continue down the ATV, UTV
Trail.
route, the trail, yes, and
Carl
then-
even laughed on that one.
And then we will, continue on this camping, with the goal of having that ready to, introduce, early part of the next year, as we do that. Okay, anything else?
I'm good.
Sounds good.
All right, then we will adjourn at 8:02, exactly 1 hour.
Yay.